Welcome to part two, lesson five, the opening revisited. So we spent a lot of time on openings, on understanding the game, as far as from an opening standpoint, what are the basics you should know? Development, how you develop, moving our center pawns mostly, not errant side pawns like A and H and F and C pawns. And we want to develop our pieces to the best squares possible and get our king to safety. So after that, we said, what comes next? Well, we went to the middle game for a little bit about how to think, and we came back around and we decided we need to revisit openings and talk about how do you think through your moves during the opening phase, because we think about our moves differently in the opening, middle game, and end game. There's different things to look for, and there's different ways to think about your moves. So we took a step back. So we're going to go over some games today. As you know, Mondays I introduced the concept. So if you missed it, you can go back and watch the stream from Monday. You can always watch my streams on YouTube also. But want to go back and look at the stream, watch it for what the concept was. Today we're going to find some games and go over those games and see if we can identify these principles about how to speak, which of me right. And so things we're looking for. Why did our opponent make the move they made? How well are we developing? Can I get some tempo? Can I attack and chase the king around and get some tempo? That's that last one. I want to definitely be able to chase the queen or the king. If they bring out their queen early, I'm going to chase them. On Monday, we showed two examples of, but I'm not going to check or attack the queen for nothing, for no reason. I'm going to do it in the spirit of development. Watch out for free candy. And while I'm developing, number two, while I'm developing, I'm going to remember that tempo, time, speed. It's a race. That is money in the bank. I want to develop faster than my opponent. Actually, time, not only on the clock, but in time as in how fast I'm developing so that I can move and keep an attack going is valuable. If I'm ahead in development, I don't have to wait till I'm fully developed to launch an attack. If I'm appreciably ahead, if I have two more pieces developed or my pieces are better developed than my opponents, I might find opportunities for attack and I want to look for those. Always watching for tactics, and we're going to be spending a lot of time on tactics in the coming weeks. Things like pins. What do you do with a pin? What is a pin? Why do I want to pin a piece? How do I find double attacks? How can I set up double attacks? Discovered attacks. What I think is the most powerful tactic there is a discovered check, but a discovered attack. And for beginners, if you can utilize them, they work extra well for beginners because beginners don't notice why that there's a discovered attack behind the obvious move. And that's why when we get back to number one, when we say, why did he do this or why does she do this? We really want to think about how the position changed. And we're always looking for king safety. All right, so here's a game. And this game is between a 1380 and a 1048. So about 1050 versus a almost 1400. Big disparity in strength. So we might expect to see some differences in following these rules in this game. And so the stronger player is black. And I know that most of the time we like to see things from white being at the bottom, so we'll flip it. So the younger player is, and younger I mean lower level ability is in white, and the stronger player is in black, but they're both beginners. So we want, we're looking at beginners because we're teaching beginners. This stream is all for beginners. It's for you to help you as a beginner, or if you're teaching beginners, give you some different ways to think about teaching. So they are playing a 15 plus 5 game. So they had ample time. They played a serious game, which is what we're going to look at for all three of these, because we're looking to see if people do the right things. And you do the right things more often if you're taking your time and you're playing a serious game. That's why we try to avoid, remember, as a beginner, we're trying to avoid bullet and blitz except for fun. But when we want to play serious and get better, it should be 15 minutes or slower. So this is 15 minutes plus a 5-second increment. It's definitely slow enough to be a serious game. So I expect to see less errors because they have more time. And that's the point, right? You want to play a slower game so that you can learn from it. So we have our e4, e5 setup, and they're both occupying and attacking the center. Great start. Knight attacks the pawn. That's free candy for the moment. If we remember, we're looking for free candy. And the knight protects. And remember, we're supposed to be thinking about all these things that you might be thinking during your play. So the first one is, why did he do that? Well, why did white do this? To develop a piece and attack the center. Why did he do this? To develop a piece and protect the center. And by the way, both picked the best squares for those knights. So I don't have to go into deep thought. I know I'm in the opening. I know it's the beginning, and they're meeting the criteria for development. Now, if they move this knight twice, I'd go into a much deeper analysis of why they did that, because that would be abnormal. Develop the bishop. Why? It attacks the center, and it also attacks towards the king side. But most important, I develop, and I'm actually able to castle right away. So again, don't have to spend a lot of time on why do you do that. How do you do that? Attacks a pawn, develops a piece, and is one move away from being able to castle kingside. But I do have to remember that part of this is he's attacking a piece that's not defended. So therefore, he's just created a free candy situation. So white ignores the free candy situation because he says, I have a double attack. Now, this is an opening trick that can happen because black didn't develop maybe differently, maybe a pawn, maybe the bishop first. We have the opportunity because the queen is disconnected from the square, which if the bishop went out instead of the knight, the queen would still hit that square, and the knight is in the way. Now, general principle, we usually say knights before bishops. And when we say knights before bishops, and by the way, I will remind you about general principles in the opening, middle game, and end game because general principles are the way I like to teach. I like my beginners to learn the principles, use those to make decisions, and later they can learn what theory says, what the book says, or what people have done in the past. So knights before bishops means you move a knight, then a bishop, then you move a knight, and then a bishop, usually. Of course, you can develop the bishop first. You could do that, but a general principle. So we have knight, and then we have bishop. See, in order. Black did knight. If black had moved the bishop next, this would not be possible because the queen would be hitting the square. So if he had done knight and bishop, black would have been in a little easier situation. So white now is not more developed, not better developed, but again, the bishop's not free, and we can get an attack. Is it sound? It breaks the principle for sure of moving a piece twice in the opening, right? So we're losing tempo. So if black can defend, black is looking like he might get some advantages because white's moving twice in the opening. Also, please note the knight does protect the pawn. So moved from here to protect the pawn. So black needs to think, why did he do this? One, well, I was attacking the pawn and now he's protecting the pawn. Okay, that's one reason why he may have done this. Another reason is, oh, wait, he's attacking here. That's 2 versus 1. I'm not going to use my queen to protect it because then I lose my queen for a knight and a bishop. I lose the queen and the pawn, actually, for a knight and a bishop. So I'm not going to use my queen to defend it. Is there a way for me to defend this pawn? Am I going to lose this pawn? And if I lose it with the knight, I'm going to have a fork on my queen and rook if I don't do something. If I lose it with the bishop, I can't castle because I'm in check. I have to move. This could be really bad, right? This is a dangerous situation, and some of you may even know this opening situation and what it's called. I'm not going to give that away. You guys can look it up if you wanted to because we're not learning openings. But this is a valid attack by a beginner. This is only a 1,050 rated player who's obviously fallen for this attack before and or looked it up and said, I like this attack. I'm going to do it. All right, this is aggressive, but it breaks our principle, moving the piece twice. Black says, hey, you're forcing me to make the only good move. And it's the correct move, but it's the only good move. So it's kind of hard not to find. So white says, why do you do this? Well, frees the bishop. Okay. But mostly it blocks the bishop from the pawn. Okay. And if I take with the bishop, black could take back, then I could take, and then black could take back, and it's a trade. Everything is traded, and I no longer have this attack, and my knight is really kind of out of position, right? Because it's moved twice. So those are options. So what happens if I take with the pawn? The bishop is still blocked, and I'm attacking the knight, and the knight has to find a square. So that is not what happened, but that is what normally happens. Normally what happens in this opening, again, if you don't have to study the opening. You really don't. You could just look at this and say, I take with the bishop, we trade, we trade, we trade, and my attack is done, and my knight is poorly placed. Why'd I do this? I take with the pawn, I'm chasing the knight. And then based on what the knight does, I can maybe move the pawn or move the pawn again, and I re-engage my attack. So I have good stuff. I could just take. Wow, I could just take. I could just sack the knight because still can't take with the bishop, right? Take with the pawn now. I threaten the knight, and my next move I'll be threatening to. Yeah, you're going to be in trouble, as you know. Okay. So white normally would take with the pawn, and then the game would go on. The knight would come here, so just in case you were curious, it would attack the bishop. Bishop can move. We might take the knight, or actually, I believe correct theory is check because we move here, we take, and then the bishop. And so black's queen side is pretty much destroyed, but this is standard. This is where it's at, and this way the game would play on for a little bit. That's theory. Okay, so they didn't play theory. We played bishop takes. So now black has to make a decision. Black takes, white takes, and black takes, and black gets back the pawn, and so it's just a trade. And if we look at the situation at this point, black has two pieces developed. The queen is out early. We don't like that, but it took back, so it had to versus one piece developed that's moved twice, by the way. And that's why black now has two pieces developed versus one, and it's white's move. So black is ahead in tempo, ahead in development. And this knight is not developed to the greatest square possible, right? Because it's out here pretty far all by itself. Right, let's see what happens. Knight, attack with tempo playing. Come on, it's up here. It's up here. Chase the queen. We are playing Chase the Queen. Excellent job by white. Chase the queen, develop with tempo, but we missed. So we also forgot, and my bad, we didn't look at free candy. So we should have measured and marked free candy. And that's actually the only free candy on the board. If black would have pushed this pawn, that would be free candy. But right now, that's free candy. So the good news is white developed with tempo. The bad news is he missed the fact that he has free candy. And again, if the knight were here, queen would be blocked and it wouldn't be free candy. So this is a problem, right? The fact that our knight's sitting out there, we're missing free candy. So did black need to understand all that when he did what he did? No. Pawn move was mandatory, had to be done. Bishop move is a mistake. Black just says trade off everything, and then black can say, now what do I want to do? Because that was all pretty much just logical by principle. I got to trade back, I got to take. And then white, I'm thinking, oh, that's a great movie. Developed while playing Chase the Queen, but he's missing the fact that he's giving away free candy. And free candy is always dangerous. So now we have free candy threat here, and we have free candy threat here. Wow. Two pieces, double attack, both of them free. How can white survive? Any ideas? Looks like the only move for white. Remember, black found the only move. Now it looks like the only move for white is to bring our queen here. Protected by the knight, attacking the queen, attacking the rook, but that doesn't stop the queen from taking. So white has troubles. Can he protect both the rook and the knight? No, can't protect them both. So he's going to give up one of them, and he has to decide which one, if he's going to give up one, and how to give it up, and what to do. So white's in trouble because of that one free candy. And white says, I'm going to threaten mate, or at least check, not mate. I'm going to threaten check, right? Queen takes, check, and protect my knight. And I'm going to give up the rook. Black says, no, I'm not going to give you even the check. I don't want to run around the board. I'm still threatening the rook. So I'm going to push on the queen. So is that a good move? No, I think black should have just taken. Why? Because the king has to move. And now you still could do the pawn push if you wanted to. See the difference? You could do the pawn push. Or you can continue to play chase the queen with another check. Now the king has to come up. All right, can't go there. So now the king has to come up and just look at that situation, and then you still can throw this move in when you're ready. Pretty nice, huh? Because as long as you're saying check, you're playing chase the king. So white tried playing chase the queen, getting that he had free candy. We ended up with a double attack, so there's a tactic for us besides just taking the free candy. Didn't have to see the double attack. Just take the free candy, and lo and behold, I found the double attack. And one of the reasons it's available is because this knight is misplaced. So now we bring the queen out, and we haven't developed the bishop, but we haven't developed either of our bishops, and we only have two pieces out on the board, and white has three, but we have free candy with check, forcing move, and therefore we should chase the king. We should play chase the king. Definitely give us more tempos, more free candy while we're doing it. But we didn't. We played chase the queen. Again, better would have been chase the king. King is better than the queen. So we still can play chase the king, because he didn't go anywhere that would stop us, like maybe here, and give up only the knight. Giving up the knight would have been better than giving up the rook. No check and the lesser piece. But white went here. Again, you try to think about why. Well, it can go here or here. It holds on to the knight, has this whole diagonal. Maybe that diagonal, if the knight moves, yeah, not as good a position as bringing it back here, right? So we know that white didn't make the best choice. So black says, I'll take the rook, okay, free candy with the check. King has to move up, and let's see what he does next. He plays chase the king. Excellent job of playing chase the king. Now the king is out in front of the pawns, which is not the way. We said the king should be behind behind three unmoved pawns. It is in front of two pawns. That is definitely not. This is definitely not where we want our king. Now we could play chase the queen again, right? Or better, right? I'm telling you, better is chase the king. So we could develop a bishop and play chase the king at the same time. Should we? Yeah, let's see what he does. He does. He plays. If you didn't know my way of analyzing a game, I'm not showing what's going on, and you can look at the moves, of course. I I hide that because I want to be as surprised as you and see if I figure out and if my student figures it out just like I would. So good. Play chase the king. All right. So we voluntarily put our knight into a pin. That's a pin. So we've seen a lot of tactics already. We saw an early attack, premature attack by white, maybe, but we did see free candy leading to a double attack. And now we see a pin. We've also seen chase the queen, tried to chase both queens. One was good, one was not because we missed a free candy. And we played chase the king, and we're still playing chase the king, right? All of this is, think about it, this bishop was developed by chasing the king. This knight moved twice, just like white's knight moved twice, but black's knight, just like white's, did it with tempo because he was attacking. White just didn't carry through correctly with taking with the pawn, but so now we get also the bishop is developed with tempo because of chase the king. So we move the knight, blocking the bishop, but giving ourselves an absolute pin, which just means this knight cannot move. Unfortunately for black, I can't get, if I had a pawn to push against him, that would be great, but I don't have any pawns to push against him. But I do have the queen hitting it and the bishop. But right now there's three pieces protecting it, way enough pieces protecting it. So how can I bring another piece to bear on this king, playing chase the king, with tempo? Well, first of all, this queen is also still being annoying. So maybe I want to play chase the queen first. Because I'm looking at if I could castle, that would put my rook here, and that rook would be lined up with that king. And then I'd have the most powerful tactic, the discovered attack. This knight can move anywhere it wants, and I'd have a check. That would be awesome. But I can't castle legally because I'd be castling through a check. So I didn't know, and I said, well, what should I do? I can develop my bishop this way, but I can develop my bishop this way and attack the queen, gaining more tempo, and then castle. Or I can play chase the king and go here, say checkmate. Yeah, because the knight, we always have to ask ourselves, What happened in the last move? The last move, the knight was here. It was protecting this square. My queen could not come up here. And it's not checkmate. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Check here. The king can squeeze out this way. Is it worth it? Yeah, probably. But we have choices, right? So this is nice. Check. The only move white has is to move here. We lose this pin, but now the king is out in the open. So the choice is to be made. Do I check first? And I know the king has to go here. Or do I play chase the queen? Or do I just develop my bishop and maybe try to castle this way, which I'm not crazy about it as much. So I like chase the queen, check here, or maybe just bring the rook over and not castle. So I have that discovered attack ready to go. So there's 3 candidate moves. And by candidate moves, we mean coming up with a move, 3 choices of good moves. Good moves. Sometimes there's only one. We saw that black only had one good move when the bishop and knight were happening, and that's why the attack, although premature, could be effective, could be okay, because black had to find the only move. But I usually find that if you, even a beginner, if you only give them one good move, they'll find it. Because if they don't find it, the game's over. So they're going to find it most likely. All right. So let's see what happens. By the way, we also, just thinking, if I say check, king moves. If I don't say check next move, white can get this check, which keep me from black from castling, keep him from castling. So let's see what happened. So he went for the check. So black decided on the check. No problem there. Chase the queen. And now we have only 2 pieces protecting. We have 2 pieces attacking. So if we take, he takes. We can't take because he takes. So equal number we don't want to take. So that didn't win us the knight. So let's see what black is going to do next. Black plays more chase the king. Why not? These squares are gone, and now we're playing chase the queen again. I mean king again. Why not? Look, can't go here, can't go here, can't go here. Oh my goodness, can't go here, can't go here. Did you see that? Look at that. The bishop. Nice job by black playing chase the king. Can't hit these. Queen's got it. Can't hit these. The bishop's got it. Can't go here. The knight's got it. That king has no moves. So, forced to find a way to defend. Guess what? The only way to defend, right? So we know that one is coming. So now we look again. Back to an absolute pin on a knight, just a different knight. Absolute pin. Can we attack again? Yeah, we have options. We could go here. Pawn can block. Maybe not. We don't want to do that. When you pin a piece, you want to usually pile up on it, right? So here's a way to easily pile up on it, and you'd win that piece because that knight can't move, and you'd be attacking it with a pawn. Now, would give white opportunities to move, like to move his knight here. And if you take, he takes back. You'd have opportunities to put your queen here, try to get a queen trade. But then this knight is free. Oh my goodness, so many complications. If you put your queen here, queen could just take. This knight can't take back. Okay? But this knight could with check. So we're not going to do that. So here, threatening our rook, we could just take here. Why? If white then takes the rook, you're going to lose this knight either to the queen or to the bishop. And we have a discovered attack. Oh, it's just checkmate feels like it's right around the corner. We get both of these knights for that one rook, and the king would be out here exposed with all the rest of the pieces coming at you. So checkmate pretty quickly. Let's see what happens. All right, so black went for this one. It's playable. It's playable. I definitely recommend probably this instead. Could have even went for the chase the queen because a question is, where does the queen go? Remember, this knight cannot move. That knight cannot move. The queen is the only thing attacking. But can the queen take? Yeah, because the knight doesn't have to be able to take back when the king takes. How's that? The king doesn't have to be able to. The queen doesn't have to be able to be taken back because it's protected. Even though the knight can't move, it's protected. So the king cannot take. That would have been checkmate. So can't play chase the queen, and we're not threatening checkmate because the bishop's covering the square. but we can't put the bishop in the square because then the bishop is no longer protecting the square. Okay, if you occupy the square that you're attacking, you are no longer attacking the square. You are simply occupying it and your fodder to be taken. So we can't chase the queen. That's not going to work. I still like chasing the knight. And if this knight goes to any place, I don't know that we care. So this knight can't go here, which is get taken off. And if this knight goes here, then we have to worry, right? Because the queen, look at this, the king, this is really interesting. So if we went here, this check, the king actually can step up because the queen blocks it. But then we'd have a discovered attack. Plus we can't, sorry, can't. Can't go here, knight. Has to go here. And then we still have a discovered attack. And we don't want a discovered attack. Now, the good part is knight really doesn't have any place good to go for his discovered attack. I mean, he can win a pawn. That's nice. We don't really have to worry about it. The king can move away next move, no matter where the knight goes. But I can see why we don't want to play with all those possibilities. So there are some things that we have to worry about. But black chose this route. Again, I think there might be other ways. Here's another way. What happens here? So the king is in check. This knight cannot move. It wouldn't matter. By the way, the pawn is protected by the knight. King can't go here. King can't go here. We already established that. I can't take the pawn. Can't move here because of the knight. Pretty tricky. And the king can't move here or here. Guess what, folks? Checkmate. That took me a long time to find, right? I'm analyzing with you, looking through the game. So it's how do we find that? How do we find a one move checkmate in the middle of the board? First of all, the king's in the middle of the board. We look and we say the queen has all these squares. The bishop has all these squares. So now the only squares we have to worry about this square. That's the only square the king and the king can't go there. So actually, the king can go nowhere right now. The king has no squares, just like the last move. The king has absolutely no squares. So the king has no squares. Can we say check? If we could say check, it should be checkmate. We looked at this one, that should be checkmate. But no, because if the queen moves here, we no longer attack this square. We no longer, well, we do attack this square. But we are giving up this square and this whole line. And this pawn can come in between and block. So here is the one move mate. One move mate. And if I'm black, I'm like, looking at that lady going, yeah, I won the game, but man, I had a one move mate. And here's the fun part, even if you don't see that the knight's protecting it and it's checkmate, I still like the move because if the king takes, this knight is free candy. And we just take the free candy. So even if we don't know that it's checkmate, it might still be a good move to draw the king away, the defender of the knight, and we could take the knight. So good news there. But it is checkmate, so even better. But black didn't see it. Black went this way. We block, and then we get the check, not checkmate now, because now white has a square because the queen isn't hitting the square. So he did find it one move late. If he had found that move the move before, it would have been checkmate. But this is the only move he has. So let's see where we go next. We play check again. What do you guys think about that check? There's a problem about that check. There's two ways to block that check, and one of them chases the queen. Now gives up the rook. But if we're trying to do checkmate, if that's our goal is checkmating our opponent, we're giving them a chance to run away. And so we may not want him to run away. But again, we're forcing him into making good moves a little bit. He could have used the knight and saved the rook. That's an option. But look at this. I love it. I love it. Black says, nope, we're just going to keep playing chase the king. Love playing chase the king. So the knight could take back, the bishop could take, the king could take, and we'd be okay. Let's see what happens. Kind of forced. And this time, so instead of taking the knight and saying check, black decided, let me grab the rook while I can. Okay, so this pawn move was just a free pawn giveaway, but it's okay. Now it's white's move. And white does not, look at what white does. What he's attacking here, yes, that's true. He is attacking and looking at a fork. But his king is still way out in the open, And even if he were to take here, it might be bad news to open up that file. And by moving here, we're allowing the queen to come up here, and just, just don't want all these possibilities. I would have much preferred a check here. So the knight goes there with check, and the king has to move. We already established the king can't move here because of the knight, and the king would have to move into the line of the queen, and we would get a discovered attack on the next move. And by the way, we would have checks maybe, especially from here. We might be able to harass the king enough. You never know. But this move, why'd he do that? He's only threatening a fork. Black says, I'm going to keep playing chase the king. Remember, when a knight moves, it still attacks the square it vacated. So all of these squares are taken. Uh-oh. So is this square. King has no squares. I think we have checkmate. No squares for the king. Oh, even better, right? Just checkmate. So at least the check wouldn't have stopped this potential checkmate, except we would have chased the king around and maybe get our knights into a position that could have worked, right? Because right now it's still this is threatening checkmate right now. So we need to be dynamic or give our king away to get away, and there's not many ways to give away for the king to get away except maybe move the bishop, which just invites the queen to come back. So good, found checkmate. All right, that game took a little longer than I would have liked it to. Here's another game, and the other one was only 15 plus 5. Nice slow game, had time, and the weaker player gave away a lot of free candy, and it's what we anticipate happening. So here's a game where it's a correspondence game. So they have like every day they have to make one move. So you would expect totally to have a solid game, no free candy. Both players are over 1700, and white is 1800 and change. So let's flip the board. And black, our student, is only 1730 at this time um, time for the game. So in a correspondence game, he's 1731. He's playing in 1825. Let's see what happens in this game. Good, center. I like it. Attack. And now let's see. If you notice, he learned from last game. He said even though he won the game, he knows his opponent had an attack, and he doesn't want to fall into that attack again. So he'd prefer do the bishop first because the knight can't go here yet. And so he does. We get 4 knights, and now if the knight comes here, black can castle, putting his rook on that pawn, and he'd have the rook and the king, and the rook and the pawn is worth 6 points, and the knight and the bishop, if you were to do this attack, is worth 6 points. So it would be a trade. Now, my students were always worried about that. They didn't like the idea of trading their rook and a pawn for this bishop and knight. And I explained to them, although the rook is a very strong piece, it's not usually used until the end game, late middle game, end game, while the bishop and knight are used in the middle game to win the game. So since you'll have an extra bishop and knight, and your opponent won't, and his rook won't get into the game as quickly, you should take that trade, because then you will be up those 2 minor pieces, and it's 2 pieces also versus 1 rook. You got a pawn, but the pawns are not usually what we attack with. So it's still 2 pieces versus 1 for attacking purposes. And if you got to the end of the game and you had a bishop and a knight against a rook, I think you'd be happy. So they stopped being afraid of that trade. So far, if you notice, development, no problem. So why did he do that? Now, I didn't say why he did that before this because everything was just clear development. So this is also clear development, but we have a tactic. Remember, tactics are important, and it's right up there on the list. We're going to talk about tactics. So we have a pin. It's not an absolute pin. You can give away your queen for the bishop if you want to move the knight bad enough. Especially if you had a way to say checkmate, you might want to move the knight bad enough. Understand. But as of this moment, we probably don't want to move our knight because we'll lose our queen. And white is now threatening to pile up on that knight. White is threatening to get a second piece on that knight so that you can't take back with the queen. You have to take back with the pawn and open up your king side. Okay, everybody understand that? Threatening that if I had the knight here, I take with one or the other, usually the knight. I take with the knight. You take back with the pawn. Bishop does not take. The bishop attacks the rook, and the rook usually will move. And now I have an open king with a bishop sitting here and that pawn not there. The pawn's over here now. It's not a good situation normally, especially for beginners. So black says, I know I'm supposed to develop, but I'm allowed to push a pawn if provoked. I feel provoked. How do you break a pin? One way to break a pin is to put the bishop back. Then you feel like I developed it. I don't want to, and I don't want to move it twice in the opening. So I'm going to move my pawn, threatening this bishop, and make him move twice in the opening. Right? Let's make him lose a tempo. So white does, backs it up, maintaining the pin. Now black can shove it all the way. And if he shoves it all the way, white can decide, do I want to trade and win 2 pawns for my bishop or my knight, depending which one I take with? Do I want to get 2 pawns for my piece and expose the king with no pawns over here? A lot of times I do, especially playing beginners. I'll do that. I'll say, yeah, I'll lose a point. I'll lose a point. I'll give up a bishop or a knight for 2 pawns and a totally open king side. Yeah, I might do that. So black has to realize that if he pushes here, white might take. Not that it's a losing position at all. That's not bad, but you have to realize it and decide: do you want to play that game? Do you want to play that risky game? The other option is to see what I'm going to do if that knight comes in. Now, if the knight comes here, maybe at that point I push, because now even if all these trades happen, I still can trade off that knight. My queen is going to get into the game. Maybe then I'm okay. But we still have this threat for the moment. Okay. Black says, yep, I'll wait. If you do that, maybe I'll just push that pawn. Meantime, I'm freeing my bishop. Same way. It can come here or it can come here. Bishop is coming out. And white does what we call a prophylaxis. Why did white do this? Remember, you should ask yourself. White did it because he doesn't want this bishop coming here in the same situation. He fears that situation enough that he's pushing the pawn before the bishop gets developed. So that's not in keeping with our principles, right? Because you're not provoked. You're doing it, and it's okay. Prophylaxis is okay to restrict the movement of your opponent. It's great. But we're doing it before the bishop comes. So now the bishop just says, okay, I won't go there. And now this move becomes superfluous because, or unnecessary because I didn't put the bishop there. Now, this would be awesomely okay if we're going to put our queen here and castle queenside. That would be fine, right? Because then we don't care. In fact, we might even push this pawn and start pawn storming after we finish our development. So, okay, good or bad? Prophylaxis is a good idea sometimes. Just for a beginner, based on the principle. Unless you're castling queenside, I'm not crazy about it, but it's playable. All right, so now black, interestingly enough, says, I'm just going to attack your knight. It's protected by the queen. Moved it twice. Didn't develop the bishop. Don't get it. Right? So remember, why did he do it? Tax, tax. Maybe he wants to trade off knights. That's okay by white, I would think. So I don't like this move. And I said it on Monday, and I'll say it again. If you don't know why your opponent made a move, you don't see a good reason for the move, then assume it was a mistake. Even if you're playing somebody way higher than you, and black is the weaker player, but white can assume it's a bad move, even if they were a higher rated player, because it's if you can't figure it out, say, show me why you did that. So white says, hey, I'm going to ignore this move and I'm going to attack your knight twice, just what we talked about. And this is pretty much the only way you're going to stop from losing this, getting this pawn opened up. And do we care if you drag our queen into the game? No, that'd be very helpful for checkmating later. So white says, I'm going to jump on this opportunity while I have it. All right, so he does. Black does what we talked about. And here's where white can actually sacrifice material right now. Right? This would be an interesting time for white to try sacking material, maintaining the pin, double piece on it, and then the queen would have an in. Oh man, well, we'd have to go in further maybe, but We could push this knight with a pawn, chase him away. Now he gets to come back here. That'd be interesting. Lots of dynamics going on here. But if I was white, I would be very tempted to sacrifice. Let's see what white does. White does. Applause, applause, applause. By the way, what happens if he takes with the bishop? That's a mistake. That's a bad mistake. It's a mistake. We could take with the knight first, check. That's called an in-between move. We get the check. We could take back with the pawn to allow the rook free access to the king. So that's one option. And we'd still have two pieces on the knight. So, this might be a good time to break the rule and take with the pawn, give freedom. Or we could just take with the queen. Now we have three pieces attacking the knight. So even if you take here, white gets back the piece. Look at that. White gets back the piece that he was sacrificing to a pawn. Well, he gets it back right away with check. And that's always nice, right? Check is a good thing. Chase the king. So interesting. Okay. So he could take with the bishop, but it would be a lot of calculating to know that you should be able to get back the piece. Okay. But he takes with the knight because the knight was under attack. So now, why do you take with the knight? So he can keep the pin afterwards, and he'd have two pieces still attacking the knight, and the queen hopefully will get in, right? Maybe after we push the knight away. So black just makes a really odd move, in my opinion. So he takes the knight. The knight. Takes the knight. So what's odd about that? Well, this knight moves. It's a discovered attack on the queen. The knight. If we take back with the bishop and maintain the pressure here, that might be useful. You could take with the knight, but then the rook can take, but then you lose your queen. So if we take with the knight, chances are he's got to take here. It gets so messy. So the queen would take here, the knight would be here, the bishop could then take, connecting, but now that queen is looking nice. There's just so much going on here. Again, nice complicated position. Who's winning? Who's losing? Great complicated position. Black made a nice move that we're going to, and white just says, I'm going to keep my knight and protect the bishop. But we know that isn't true. We've talked about it. With this knight here, we've talked about check, and then this bishop has nobody protecting it. And where before we had the bishop here and was threatening the knight, now the bishop's backed up. So I think this is a blunder by white because black just gets to take. So again, why did he do it? Well, he did it to protect his. He didn't want to lose the knight, but he could have taken back first. But he's worried about losing the knight. And if we look, what else is happening? Well, this doesn't work because the bishop is a discovered attack on the queen, but that discovered attack has problems. So again, taking the knight might have been better. We could have also tried queen here, threatening the pawn, threatening checkmate. And then probably the best move is to take. Then we could take here. No mate threats. No mate threat. And in fact, we get problems here with an attack on our king. And we might do this because now we have to see if we can get our pieces over here to checkmate because we're giving away. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Okay. So the bishop here, I forgot, attacks the queen. So we have tempo there. If the pawn pushes, we take the knight with a check. So this fails to the check, losing proposition there. So we're attacking the queen. What do? You can put the knight back, right? Because you saved the piece. Remember? Remember, you took a free piece. Well, what's wrong with that one? There's an absolute pin on that pawn. Absolute pin. Queen gets to come here. If the pawn can't take legally, right? Cannot take. Can't put anything in between. King has to move. So we start wondering where we stand. Look, free piece. And after we take, black has no option, no squares for the king, no way to put anything in between. He has to give away the queen. Oh, look at that. This is gorgeous. So white would be back in the lead right there and then. Wow. So maybe the queen here. Maybe the queen here is best. Threatening to take and threaten checkmate. Again, if we take, we get an attack on the queen, and the queen has to move or do something else. And if the queen, where's the queen going to move? Not on black. Not going to take. And if he moves to another square, we know we get this check still. No, we don't. Sorry, there's a pin. So the queen can move to white, but then white gets to take back that knight and threaten the pawn. Life is good. Life is good. It's going to be a complicated game. But I would have loved it if white, that would be a good way for white to have played. But white, I think, just makes a blunder, forgetting that, he was on the attack and went from aggressive to defensive in one quick move. Aggressive to defensive. And the only change was, I mean, he was aggressive here. He was willing to sacrifice a piece for two pawns. And then black took one of his knights, and I mean, even he could have just taken and still given up the sacrifice, but he didn't want to give up the piece for one pawn, right? Because he can't take the queen. So you need to look deeper and find another aggressive move, another attacking chance. But he didn't. So because he didn't, we're in this situation. By the way, we didn't look at if the queen had come here, the knight could have come back here, threatening the queen. So that would have been nice. We could come here, not really threatening mate because the knight is still holding it, but this square is still available, remember? Because the pin is back on. And in fact, I mean, I don't know if it's a good move, but we could have done that move right now. Check. Maybe that's better. King only has one square. We could take here with check. That would give us threats. We could just take the free pawn first. Can't put the knight in front. Queen would take checkmate. King has to go back. And from here, we can again go here with check if we want. We could take here if we want. Or maybe it's just best take here first. King still has to go back. And we get this check or the check with the bishop. So again, white had an opportunity to maintain his aggressiveness, his aggressive posture, but he went defensive. And I think this defensive should just lose to the in between check and drops a bishop. So black finds it. Yay! Special yay because he's my student. Even better. I'm even more excited. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed someone was chatting. Let me just see what's going on with chat. Oh, you're welcome. You're super welcome. Thanks for visiting and viewing. Appreciate that. Appreciate that a lot. So we have a check. And so the queen takes back. Remember, the pawn could have taken back. And that might have been interesting because then the rook would at least have an open file. But this way we can castle faster because we're about to lose a bishop no matter what. So we lose the bishop. This is now threatened twice, but protected twice. And now we got to figure out what to do, right? This one is still under attack, but black is happy because black just got the bishop back. Remember, he took with a piece. So if you count them, 3 minor pieces to 1. So even if white takes back this minor piece, black is up a whole minor piece. So good news for black. So why did white do it? He needs to get back material. And then black says, let's play chase the bishop. Let's get him out of here, right? Not worried, not worried. We have 2 pieces protecting. Not worried about a check because the queen would trade off wherever the queen would go to try to check. So we put the question to the bishop right away. It's called putting the question to the bishop. What are you going to do? You're going to stay or go? Shall I stay or shall I go? So in between attacks. So in between attacks, especially for beginners, is extremely risky because if you make a miscalculation, you might lose material. But in this case, it looks pretty good. And this player's 1825, so he's not a beginner. So he's looking. He says, "Hey, I can attack the queen. I can play chase the queen while you play chase the bishop. Your queen is more valuable. You don't really have any checks. You don't have any great places to go with the queen because that's protected. So you're going to have to move your queen away, and then I can worry about my bishop." So the queen does. The queen moves away, and now white can worry about his bishop. Or white could play chase the queen again. And that could be a mistake, right? Because if you play chase the queen here, then you might get black saying, let's trade queens. And if you were to trade queens, that's bad because you're attacking the rook and you're attacking the bishop, it's a double attack. Not a fork, because the same piece isn't doing the attacking, but two pieces are under attack. So you got to be careful. You can't keep playing, well, I'm going to attack something of greater value. These in-between attacks, you can't keep doing without paying attention to, do they have a way that's going to cause you trouble out of it? So white knows that. White backs up the bishop. Good. Why? Because he doesn't want to lose it. And this square he could have went to, but why not come all the way back to stop giving you tempo for expansion on that side? So the bad news is white, because white did this in between. Think about it. What did this in between move do for white? It moved the queen from here to here. And that's not good because now the queen takes away the right to castle that way. So in reality, what we did is something I try to tell my students not to do, is we just helped black improve his position. That queen went from here to here, and this is actually a better square for the queen than it was before. So we helped black improve his position. That's all that happened with that in-between attack. Black is ahead of material by a whole piece. So again, black can trade material. Black can trade material, not pawns. White doesn't want to trade material. He wants to trade pawns. So that's why black did that move. Why did white do this move? Don't know. Maybe he wants to expand in the center. Not sure. Maybe he wants to tuck his bishop away here if black doesn't take. Because right now he's saying go ahead and take. And if he takes, we're going to double up our pawns. And so black, again, based on the principle of trade material, not pawns, black could have happily have taken and probably should have, just to simplify the game for himself. But he decides to also attack in the center. He's got one piece protecting, two pieces protecting, but there's one, two, three pieces attacking. What's that called? Free candy. So black was trying to be aggressive and attack in the center, but he's basically giving away free candy. Right, see that? That's just free candy because the queen x-rays through. Queen also attacks. So white gave away free candy, and black gave away free candy, and white, the stronger player, missed the free candy. So I've talked about this many times. Free candy is something that beginners miss all the time, and we see it here, and we take with the bishop or the pawn, it doesn't matter, right? Because remember, the queen was hitting here, but this move that I said helped the queen improve didn't help the situation any with attacking the pawn anymore, and we would have lost. Black would have given away another pawn, and we don't want to give away pawns. We don't want to trade pawns. We want to trade pieces. So that would have been not as good. Now, of course, we could say, well, black has attacks now, so it's not like it's bad. We can't. Can we afford to give away free candy? Not really, right? We don't want to give away free candy. Um, so this move not only wins the pawn, but it attacks the bishop. The bishop has to find a home, and after the bishop moves, then the queen can possibly take. We could castle. Can't really castle with this bishop hitting here, so we have to be careful. We could just drop the queen back here and then later here and just take the pawn. Because if everything gets traded off, if the queens get traded off, the rooks get traded off, it'll be a bishop against, it looks like two extra pawns. So it'll be two extra pawns against the bishop. And if all the pawns got traded equally off, it'll be two pawns against the bishop. And white actually would have the only chance to win this game because the pawns would mean I can become a queen or a rook while the bishop can't checkmate by itself. That's one way to look at it, that we want to trade so that we end up with a favorable situation. And that's why black doesn't want to lose or give away pawns. We need pawns to become queens later if we traded off everything equally. So much better would have been just taking and still not pushing because we'd still lose a pawn and have the bishop under attack. But now if black wanted to push the pawns, he would maybe hook on the file so he could push the pawn. He could push this pawn so he doesn't have to worry about this rook. But he doesn't anyway because of this bishop for the time being. And so black would still be ahead, but he should have gotten rid of the material. Okay. So white missed the opportunity to win a pawn, and then black decided to take. Okay. Again, this one is definitely not free candy. We got three pieces attacking this pawn and nothing protecting it once he's taken. But black was very happy to see that white did not take with the pawn. White should just take with the pawn, right? We can't castle this side anyway because of the queen. We're going to probably try to castle this way. We can't take with the queen. That was just a blunder. So we've seen another blunder, right? So here's another blunder, like bringing the knight back. And remember, this is an 18 rated player playing a correspondence game. So he had a whole day for every move. And he still misses stuff. We still miss stuff. And this one is a one move tactic. Do you see it? Why is this a bad move? It's a one move losing tactic. We get this skewer. And a skewer is when we attack something of greater value to win something of value. So we're still going to win something of value, 3 versus 5. And there's no way to take back because the queen can't stay on the diagonal. So we're going to get a free rook, or we're going to get a queen. All right, so let's see. I think black found it. Black did find it. That's how black won this game. So here we have again the in-between move. Remember we said, well, you know, if your queen is under attack, you're going to lose the rook. I can attack a piece also, right? So here's one option. You take the queen. White has to take the queen because if he takes back the bishop, then your queen just moves. So you take the queen, you take a rook. You could take a pawn. I still got a free rook for a pawn. I got a free rook. Not free. I got a rook for a pawn. I still have a rook for a pawn, ladies and gentlemen. Still have a rook for a pawn. All I have to do is make sure I don't do anything silly like put my queen here where white could take and with check, and then I don't get the rook. So I could put my queen here. I could tuck my queen way back here. Protects the pawn. I could tuck him way back. And I'm still going to win this rook. And then I don't even have to worry about giving up a pawn. I don't even have to lose a pawn if I don't want to. But let's see what black chooses to do. Black says, yep, I'm just taking your queen and I'm taking your rook. And white does another in-between move, which is actually fine. This one's fine. In-between move attacks the bishop. And then when the bishop moves, still can take, and we still get to take because the rook there. Because maybe we could chase him away, right? We could go here. We could chase him away. Ah, there we go. And then we could put the rook over here. But by then it's a little late, right? And white has almost no pieces to do any attacking. How's that? Wow. Predictions. Love it when we predict it. And this is a mistake by black. Simple move, right? Oh, no, 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 no. It's not a mistake. Not a mistake. Discovered check. Discovered check. Loses the bishop. Good play. Good play. Black says, no, 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 no. I'm going to do this first. Or he could just drop the bishop out of the way so there's no bishop to be lost, right? Bishop drops out of the way, maybe even comes back over here so the bishop could take the pawn, and we don't even have to move our king over here. So there's still options. Still options. Also, we could have played chase the king because the king can't go to these two squares. The king would have to go here, which means you drop another pawn. Look at that one too. So we get check. Oh, this could come up. Could come up. Yeah, we can move that up. We could say, no, no, no. No discover check anymore. You could chase me. We could do that game. We can get you having double all your pawns all secure. So that might not be what I want. Might not be what I want. You could also just come here, right? You could just come here. But bishop back is fine too. There's so many options. I'm not crazy about this one. It just gives away free candy, but it does stop losing the bishop on that check. But I don't like giving away free candy. Black White just says, nope, I'm going to protect the pawn so I can push and push, but there is no black bishop. There's no black bishop. This push, king just goes over, and that pawn is stuck there forever. No way for him to get around it. So that is, I don't like this move. It doesn't do you any good. The pawn push doesn't do anything. The king just blocks it. If you had a black bishop, you would, but there is nothing there. So again, we could play chase the king if we wanted to. Because now if the pawn gets pushed, we could take bishop, we can have some fun. But black just said, no, I'm just going to take here. I'm going to try to simplify. And he went with the check. Again, this pawn push would have blocked the bishop. Not that he needs to block the bishop, but that would have been a move. I also like a rook here, because then we're threatening a discovered check on the king. That would have been good, but we just go for the blatant check. And I think, well, White kind of missed an opportunity. He could have won here, but with that, then we do get the check. The king can't go here to protect, so we're looking like we're going to lose this pawn, and we are, because if we block the check, then we get another count, right? You could take, and I could take with the rook. Then I'm still going to lose that pawn. So life is not good for White. So White can't even push that pawn now that this file is open. So that was a good thing. Black did a really good thing of opening the file. Again, I would have maybe done the checker move earlier, but so what? Interesting. Tack the bishop. Let's see why. How many squares does the bishop have? Can go here, can go here. That's it, right? Can go back here. Could go here. It's protected. He's got a few squares. He decides to attack the bishop with tempo. And we have, once again, we're seeing this a lot, another in-between move by White. Rather than deal with this threat, he makes a counter threat. So Black can just take. You could take with check. King can come up. The rook can even come here and say check, but then the king just takes his pawn and you're running out of pieces. Let's see what Black decides. Black says, nope, I'm not going to trade. I'm going to keep the rook out, and I'm still pressuring you, and I'm pressuring both of these squares. If I can get my rook onto that back rank, that would be checkmate, ladies and gentlemen. So he's hoping this bishop doesn't protect that square. That bishop goes here, checkmate. The bishop goes here, then we can't do checkmate. But we get to trade off the piece or just pile up on it. Well, no, we can't pile up. Bishop would be. Let's see where the bishop goes. Bishop goes here, threatening the bishop, see if we could get it traded off. And guess what? We're up material, trade. Now we have both rooks on the open files, the only fully open files. Black has both of his rooks ready to go. And we see now that we attack the pawn from behind, and good times are had. White resigned at this point. That pawn's going to fall, and then just it's not going to. I mean, White could still try to push, but he's down two pieces. So hopefully those were instructive games. I'm sorry, I'm trying to see things as fast as I can for you, and I'm missing stuff every once in a while, so it's fun for me too. I get to get better at my skills by analyzing and looking over games. But remember the major things we were looking for, these tips we're talking about. Why did our opponent do what they do? And how well am I developing? Can I develop and gain tempo? Can I be aggressive and gain tempo? And White could have maintained his attack early in the game and he became defensive. And as soon as he became defensive, we haven't talked about that. That's more of another philosophy of gameplay that'll come later. But it is easier to attack than defend. Just is. It's easier to attack than defend. So do your best to be be the aggressor, be the attacker. You will find your game is easier to play. So when we go way back here, where White decided to sack, Black did a counterattack, and then White became defensive. I would have loved to seen a more aggressive posture. Even if after this we worry about the fact that we have a fork here. Where's our king going to go? How we're going to play it? I think it's still worth it. I do. I think it's still worth it. You just got to find the right home, right? You got to maybe attack the knight. If this doesn't work, you just take the knight. So attack the knight maybe and say, where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And if he greedily takes the knight, you're happy. You're happy, happy, happy. You have choices. You could take this knight first, but you could take here threatening mate. We talked about it. So this mate threat is going to be very nice to have in our pocket. This is a playable move, but now we get this pin. And we saw that good things are going to happen again, right? He goes here, and we get to do things like this. We get to do things like this. Pinned and threatened. We're going to win this night. So good things are going to happen if you just stay aggressive. But am I ahead in development? Look for attacks. Watch for tactics. We saw some great tactics. We saw pins. We saw double attacks. I think we saw a discovered attacks, at least the fear of a discovered attack. We saw here the pin was possible with some dynamic attacks with the queen, the knight, and the bishop all teaming together. That would have been a beautiful thing to see. I would have loved to have seen that. It's a free candy. We saw free candy get left every once in a while, and especially when we saw later where Black actually pushed his pawn, offering free candy. Right? We saw where that happened, and didn't need to. So right here, we just offered free candy, and White should have taken it. That would have helped White out. So be aware of free candy. Count the attackers. Remember, we only have two protecting, and there's one, two, and then the sneakiness that the queen is also attacking. And then we saw a skewer. We even saw a skewer. I mean, how about that? Beware of the counterattack, right? It's not always the right move. So the queen could have just run away, and we're still going to win that rook, right? And this queen can't even go here to attack one of the bishops because all these squares are taken. Can't go here, can't go here. So can't go here, the pawn. Can't take the pawn, the queen. Could go here. Can't go there, free piece. So this queen, if I counted correctly, this queen has one, two good squares to go to. So it might have been worth it to just keep the queens on the board, but queens can be dangerous. Queens give you opportunities for attacks. So maybe you don't want to keep the queens on the board and you're happy to trade them off. But anyway, we saw our skewers. Wow, we saw a skewer. So we saw a lot of tactics in this one game. And we definitely saw playing chase the queen and chase the king. Chasing the king is even better because it's a check. But I didn't see too often that we chased a piece for no purpose. So even this one, you might say, yeah, this in between move doesn't work, but we're going to lose a rook anyway. So White is trying things, which is, you got to applaud White. He's trying things. Maybe, you'll make a mistake and take with a check when he shouldn't or something. You never know. That's not even a check, but figure that he could just take material because he's going to get it back when he takes the queen. That would be a mistake, right? This would just be a bad move because one, you 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 get to win a bishop if you want. Can't do that. I lied. You get the check here, then you still lose the queen. Oh, is this a decent move? We'll look at it later. My hour's up. I don't want to go overtime on you guys. Problems here. So maybe it is best just to take. Maybe it would just be best to take. But that would have been an interesting move because of this double attack here. That would have been very interesting move. Very interesting. Anyway, fun game. Learned a lot, I think. Saw the examples. Friday, 8 p.m. Friday at 8 p.m. We are going to allow students to play. I'll play the students, but for the purpose of going through these things in the opening. Oh, you're welcome. Yes, I am on YouTube, and I can find the YouTube link and tell you what that is, I guess. I should be able to do that. Hold on. But I take every one of these and I save them to YouTube. So all of my lessons are uploaded to YouTube. So if you miss any of the lessons, they only stay for 14 days right now. So if those go away and you want to see those lessons, you can go to YouTube and I'm loading them all there. Thanks for asking. I will get you the link in about 2 seconds and I will see if I can chat it in the link because that's not new for me, but I haven't chatted back to chat yet. I'm new to this. I've only been doing it about three. Well, actually, now this has to be at least our fifth week because we are up to lesson 5. I'm doing a lesson per week. So here's the link. Put that in the chat. Let's see how that goes. There's a link for YouTube. Awesome. Thank you for asking. I'm glad you found me too. Thank you very much. And the one thing I will tell you, the one thing I can almost promise you, the thing that is my goal is I'll get better even at teaching as we practice more and do this more. So it's a little interesting using the green screen and doing this. I'm trying to do well. So thank you for the accolades. It'll definitely boost my confidence and I'll keep working on it and getting better. And hopefully it'll be better and better for you. So tell your friends if you have any. If you don't, tell your enemies. Now, seriously, see you Friday if you want to show up. If you want to challenge me, I do everything through Lichess. I'm going to be adding the Lichess logo, something I got to do later. But If you go to Lee Chess, challenge me. I'm Tiberian without the 64 on Lee Chess. On Fridays at 8 o'clock, you can challenge me anytime. But if you challenge me at 8 o'clock, we'll actually use your game in play live to talk about all the things that we're working on. So development, king safety, free candy, and now these items up here about how you should think through your moves. And so I will be using those specifically while we're playing the game on Friday. All right. Have a great day. Thanks again for attending. Thank you for viewing and chatting. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Have a great day. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. On Friday, all you have to do is to be on Lee Chess. If you play on Lee Chess, awesome. I like supporting them. They're a free site. Their dream of the future for chess matches my dream of the future for chess, which is helping as many people play chess and enjoy the game as possible. So I like to support them. So I play on Lee Chess. And all you have to do is go to Lee Chess, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. I'll be taking challenges, and you just challenge me to a game. Tiberian, and I am asking that they be with a time increment because I'm trying to talk through the game. So if it's a +0, it's hard. And make it casual. I tell all my students to play rated games so that we can see improvement. But because we're going to be analyzing the game as I'm playing it, I prefer to be casual so I don't stress out and we just play. But give me a time increment. So what has worked well is 5 + 5, 10 + 5, 10 + 10, any of those. I still play pretty fast, but I'm trying to explain and look at the moves as we go. So just don't want to get into a time scramble and then can't talk it through. So feel free to challenge me on Friday. Have a great day. Have a great week, but hopefully we'll see you guys in 2 days. Enjoy. Thank you again.